Hey everyone, and welcome to this live Q&A session. It's a pleasure to have all of you here. You see on the big screen, Mark, the co-founder of Yasai and former podcast guest. And also up here, I bring on the big screen, Lilian from the Entrepreneur Club at ETH. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Sylvan. I'm the host of the Swisspreneur Show. And today we host a live Q&A session with Mark from Yasai. So the first question, Mark, how have you been since we last talked on the podcast?
Very good. I enjoyed a beautiful summer in Switzerland, very local. And Yasai also developed itself further and could close the first seed funding round with Finaco, our partner.
Congrats on that one. Maybe you can talk a bit more about how that actually happened, because even my mom saw, I think, the news somewhere. She just texted me and said, "Do you know this startup?" And said, "Yeah, check back 2 weeks ago. There was a podcast episode out there." So how did the funding round with Finaco happen? This is a huge success story, I would say.
Yes, this was a long project. So it started 1 year ago, the first discussions. And as with all the big companies, it takes a lot of time. And they actually wanted to create their own vertical farm in one of their, sorry, I will just close the WhatsApp thing. And they actually want to create their own vertical farm in one of their distribution centers. And they actually approached Yasai to do this as a service, to build this vertical farm. And then we said, why not just focus on one project altogether and create a joint venture in a sense. So this is how it happened.
Wow. What arguments helped you to really convince them to partner up with you and do it together instead of going their own way?
I mean, they did their own research. Mm-hmm. They did their own feasibility study and went around virtually to many different other vertical farms all around the world. And they came out with the same conclusion as we did. So the conclusion was, independently from Yasai and Finaco, the same. If you want to scale up vertical farming, you need to really go big, actually. Also in terms of volume, in terms of space that you require. And this is something we want to test in the first module that we build now in the next 6 months. And this will be basically the show pony that we will have to demonstrate and then plan much larger vertical farms for Switzerland. Yes.
Got it. Why is it that you need to go big if you want to push vertical farming to success? Why can't you do that as a smaller thing on the side, basically?
Oh, you could definitely do this, but then you would be. There's another company, another startup, Umami, for instance. They're doing great, but you can't get out of the niche if you do that. So if you want to democratize or reach the masses with food, and then you need to really scale up. And then you actually can also contribute to the economical level and challenge the import prices. That's basically the goal.
There's actually the ETH Entrepreneur Club also asked their community for handing in questions before the live stream today. And I feel that the first question that came in is actually a good fit here. The question is, what's your opinion on the 120 million fundraising round of InFarm? Are you scared? Are you optimistic? Because this goes a bit into go big or go home philosophy that you just described.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, this is no, we're not scared at all because the market is immense. To give you just an example, the biggest player in vertical farming, within the vertical farming industry, is by far Plenty. They are based in California in the US, and they raised almost $500 million so far. But they they are not even thinking about leaving their state. So they have such a big demand within just one state, and they can't even get out there. So this 120 million is great, I think, in terms of for the whole industry to grow within Europe. And there will be many players around, obviously. And yeah, it just shows that we are in a good game right now, and the whole industry is rapidly growing. Yeah.
So there's more room for big financing rounds. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. Yes.
So before we move on to the next question, if anybody listening or watching today has any questions, please feel free to add them in the comments, and we can pick them up during the live stream. This is, this ought to be interactive. So if you have anything that you'd like to know from Mark, now is the time to type it in so we can bring it up into the live session. Lilian, what other questions have you received from your community that you can share with us?
Yes, Mark. So we had some students asking you, besides Finaco, what customers do you have? Maybe you can name a few.
We are not allowed yet to do that.
Okay, maybe you can talk about the maybe give some hints.
Yeah, they like orange. No, the point is, we are actually already looking to create larger projects. So the planning of the first project, the pilot farm, is already done. Yeah. So now we start planning the next big farm, which will be the next big thing where we can focus on. And then once the pilot farm validates the numbers that we expect, we can go bigger and create more food for the people, right? More healthy plants at the end. And there we are talking with very, very different stakeholders, not just retailers and wholesalers, also from different other industries, which do have space, for instance, and want to reuse the space. Yeah.
So I guess with the new farm that you're building up right now, my mom will then probably read about you again and then ask me again, don't you know them?
No, by then, hopefully she will have bought some of our salads and eat them.
Great point. Great point. There were also questions about potential problems with pests and pathogens. I hope I pronounced that correctly, in vertical farming. So one question here was like, since resistant germs are also a problem in normal agriculture, how is this problem solved in the vertical farming? Also with any kinds of pesticides, or how do you do that?
No, just that the environment is very clean. So after every turnaround, basically, after every harvest, we completely clean the whole set. So we have in the first farm, we will have 6 levels, and they are separated from each other spatially and also through the climate system. So every time we finish harvest, we can completely clean it and ensure high hygiene standards, and ensure then also good crop quality, plant health in a sense.
Nice. Lilian, do you want to go on with the next question?
Yes, sure. To go back to your customers. So most of your customer base that you mentioned are typically situated in the urban area, and the land in urban areas, it's much more expensive compared to the rural farms, right? And whereas the food you produce remains the same, but how do you expect the customers to outperform the traditional farmers?
Well, that's not our goal. We don't want to outperform the traditional farmers. We want to help them to grow more with less. So we just upgrade the traditional farmers or offer new business opportunities to them, in a sense.
But then how do you help them to maintain the humidity and temperature, and, helping them with the investment that they could turn into vertical farming?
Okay, so there we offer the whole service. So from in the first step, for instance, we just had an example. We had a request from a farmer family, which has a beautiful farming house, about 400 square meters. and they don't want to do further cattle or animal farming there. So they want to actually reshift their focus into vertical farming. And we offer the consultancy service in the first step. So first we create a feasibility study. We tell them, okay, we don't think this makes sense here. You should try this crop or this particular plant. And then it makes sense also for your case. Then we can build it. We can offer the service to build this farm and then operate. So we can actually educate them how to operate their vertical farm. And then also the marketing, right? Because what's missing is a label in vertical farming, and we, as Yasai, will establish a brand. So this is what I'm focusing right now, and I love this work. I love creating brands. So obviously I didn't know that. And yeah, this is a lot of fun to myself right now, the branding part and marketing. Yeah.
That's great, yeah. Great to hear.
In that regard, before we talked about the huge fundraising rounds that are currently happening in that space, and when you look at software businesses, what they usually have is like a subscription business model with recurring revenue, and that's what's really pushing the valuation to the future. So that's why you say if they can grow with a certain level, then with that subscription model, they will be actually, how do you say, like an additional interest rate, and then you'll basically earn more with just without doing anything. So how do you also plan to apply the subscription or recurring revenue model with Yasai and vertical farming in general? Because that's probably where you then uncover the holy grail, probably.
Yes. That's a very good question, because as you compared software companies with hardware companies, vertical farming is a typical hardware technology solution where the hardware is not yet built, and first we need to build this infrastructure. And software companies are usually easily to scale because they don't require a lot of hardware, so you can just copy paste it from one place to another if the infrastructure is there. And with vertical farming, we have the huge challenge that it is a lot of capital involved. And we need to first build up the infrastructure in a sense. So you could think about this, if you compare it to the 20th century, the rise of highways, for instance. Yeah. So before there were no highways, it didn't really make sense to have cars, right? So this is what we do right now. We build the infrastructure, and upon this level, we can then build new farming, new software and service models, which will drive many more businesses. So we basically just built the infrastructure at Yasai right now. But in the next step, many more companies, such as farmers, could grow anything in these vertical farms. So we're just infrastructure providers. Yeah.
There's a question coming in from Jack Vincent. Thank you so much, Jack, for handing in the question. When you say hardware, do you mean IT hardware or agriculture equipment? I think that's a great clarification question.
Both. So it is kind of the infrastructure. So you could also think about the server farms, data centers. So if you look at Amazon or Google or Microsoft, what they do, they created huge server farms, data centers. So this is an infrastructure you need to build first. And upon this infrastructure, you can then create software solutions, services, right? And this is what we do right now. And instead of server farms, we just build vertical farms. And upon this infrastructure, we will be able or enable others, empower others to grow more with less. Yeah. And this is the farming as a service thought that is in our mind at the time. More with less. Just happened. Hello?
Yes, you're back now.
Okay, sorry.
But yeah, it makes sense. So it's actually a combination of both. Do you have any sort of example for the future business model that you then want to build on top of that?
Not yet, no. First we need to focus on the hardware, then we need to focus on the brand, and then we can focus on the software.
Okay, got it. Yeah. But it's a very, very ambitious, game-changing goal that you're chasing here, right?
Yes, I mean, let's say if you look at Alfred Escher, the first thing he had to do is, it's a systematic thinking of a society, and architects do this basically. So first you need to create a puzzle, which makes sense. If you look at SBB, the first thing you needed to create SBB is highly educated engineers. So what he did is founding ETH, right, to have these engineers. Then he needed access to a lot of capital. So he created Credit Suisse, or what is today Credit Suisse. And first you need to create the base to build up a bigger infrastructure.
Sounds like someone listened to our 100th episode on the Switchboard podcast. Yeah, this good. No, but it's a really inspiring story if you see how everything fits together there. So in that way, you have an architectural background from ETH, and I think that's the perfect segue to the next question that you received, Lilian.
Yes, exactly. So how did the ETH initiatives support you after launch of Yasai? Like maybe you can name how IE Labs, how they helped you, and talk a bit about this.
So the first thing is they offer a space. The IE Lab is a very nice space where you encounter other people. Basically, IE Lab and Rocket Up is the same. So you run into other entrepreneurs just while getting some coffee. And first of all, so very cheap rents, which is great. And then the network, and also magazine reports, for instance, which attracted many investors for the seed funding round. And with this label, it's much easier it's kind of a credibility label, which it makes it easier for you to raise funds.
So would you say it helped you having the ETH spin-off label to raise funds and also to be known in the outside world, outside of the ETH bubble?
Yes, very much. I mean, they have a vast network also with UBS or Credit Suisse. And then you get into this investor cycle. And the good point is also that with the ETH spin-off, if you look at the metrics, the numbers, usually startups fail. About 95% of all startups fail within the first 5 years. But if you look at spin-offs, 92% of all spin-offs survive these 5 first years of existence. And this really takes risk out of the game for the investor, for his perspective.
I just quickly wanted to follow up on the Rocket Hub or the IE Lab that you mentioned before. I vividly remember the first time I walked in there. You know, I don't have an ETH background, so that this was all new for me. But when I walked in there and just saw like startups in small, tiny offices working there all day long on their ideas and visions, I was like really blown away. For me, this was like, this is exactly how a startup space in Switzerland should look like. No fancy stuff. It's just like you have everything you need. You have a coffee machine, you have a billiard table, and your tiny offices to just work on your startup and your business with your team. And I was just blown away. And the spirit in there, you cannot really describe it. It's just so amazing just to walk up there and talk to people, meet them. It's fantastic.
Yes, definitely. I think the whole co-working spaces, these are great environments for innovation. And if you look back where these co-working spaces origined, They originated in Amsterdam back then, in the coffee houses, or in London in the tea houses, right? So random people meet each other, exchange ideas, and also create conflicts, hopefully constructive conflicts, but not always.
True.
But the point is, this is how innovation actually thrives, and these spaces, and I'm really happy that ETH is investing a lot of capital into these new innovation hubs and labs. And as we know, they will build a big one on ETH Ankerberg on the campus, and they will also build a bigger one right now in the center.
Nice. But for me, it's like co-working space is not it's not equal to any co-working space. So for me, I've seen many co-working spaces, but the Rocket Hub is really special. Just the spirit, the people that you have there. And I think that combination, of selecting the right people and also having the right space to accommodate them, I think that's what makes the magic combo. It's not just throw a bunch of random people in a coffee house and magic happens. I think you actually also do need to do a good job, as ETH did, with selecting the students and also educating them, obviously, to then have the innovation, the magic happening.
Yes, definitely. They do a great job, and all those people which are there are full of, let's say, positive energy and
right.
inspiration. So, yeah.
Is there anything that you needed to do in order to be eligible to get office space there, or was there any selection process, or how do you actually end up there with your office?
If you want to become a spin-off, you need to have a clear connection with either your master thesis or your PhD, to which you would like to commercialize, and then you need to apply and go there, and also with the support of your specific professor. So yeah, it takes some effort in front to actually get into this.
True, but let me add, so the Rocket Hub and IE Labs, they're separate, but we're sharing a space, and we're working quite close with them together, actually. And so the Rocket Hub is part of the ETH Entrepreneur Club. So if you don't, or if you're not in, or if you're not supported by the IE Lab, then you can go through us and work in the Rocket Hub. So we have an application form where you can fill it out, and then you can have an interview, and then most likely you will get a seat there.
Yes, exactly. I remember, for example, Kaitro was also in the Rocket Hub once, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Are from Lausanne.
True. Yes. So Leon, what other questions did we get? And also a quick reminder, if you do have any questions, post them in the comments so we can still address them during the live session.
Yes. So some students, they ask, what resources should everyone use to start a company? Like, do you have any tips on any resources that they could use?
Yes, here I can actually, I think about something my professor said to me during the master thesis, and he said, you already have a lot of resources yourself, you just need to open your eyes around you. So when he said that, I was a bit confused first. Then I actually thought, okay, what kind of resources do I have? Even though I'm not coming from a very, very wealthy family or something like this. So I just looked around and I analyzed my closer network, my closer friends and family, and what is actually available there. And that what I saw is, I mean, my background from the Swiss part, they were farmers and they have a lot of land and a lot of know-how in this regard. And this is when I actually found, okay, yeah, this is something I could work with and then also get into. And this is also a resource which is here. It's just a different form of capital. It's not monetary capital. It's, how do you say? I don't know. Yeah. And then you also have human capital. So all the people that you know from somewhere, And you can use this capital at the beginning because you will always have some form of capital in some way, even though you might be lacking monetary capital. Look around and assess what you already have and work with this. Yeah.
That's
Nice.
great. Thank you for sharing.
Do you have on top of that, any resources that you can recommend, like any websites or tools or books even that really helped you to get started?
Yes, I really am a fan of books, old school.
Like
And,
the physical books, not the digital versions.
It's up to you. If you
Okay.
like Audible, you can use Audible. I also do Audible, but if I really want to get into a book, I read it manually and write my notes in. And the one that helped me a lot to start with the whole mindset shift is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
That's a great one, yeah.
Yeah, this one is really, really, really inspiring. And I think
In what way? Like, what did he take away from it, or how has it changed your perception and your life even?
so. What he does is he talked with a lot of wealthy people of the last century, so with the wealthiest people, basically, from which created the United States as we know it today, or the base of the United States. And he took away all the insights they had and created a book which is so dense in know-how and so powerful, I would say, that you could, if you guide these lines that he describes, Napoleon Hill, I don't think you can do any wrong. You just gotta be very disciplined and yeah.
That's probably the hard part.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's the hard part.
Any other book or link that comes to mind that really shaped you or helped you?
Yeah, so I read a lot, so the books always change, which I can suggest. But of this year, the year of my year, the book of my year, 2020, is the Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. He also is the founder of Mind Valley. Mind Valley is something which is kind of a program where you can apply and expand your horizons. Yeah. Let's say like this.
Okay, so people can dig into if they want to know more about that topic.
Yeah.
So there's another question coming in from Jack Vincent. I think he's also very much into sales, and I think he even has his own sales system. So he asks, what's your biggest challenge in getting traction in sales? Not investment, but in customers. Mm-hmm. I love that question because that's something many Swiss startups have a challenge in that area.
Yeah, so the problem with our case is that so far we just sold a PowerPoint presentation and an Excel. And first we need to prove and validate the products itself. And we will test them with the Swiss Vitamin Institute. And in this case, then they will be very, very interested. They are already very, very interested to become customers, but we can talk a lot. We know we need to build first and produce first, and then we can actually go to the next step. But traction is already here. It's just hard to, we can show them a lot of other vertical farms and other kind of products, but that doesn't really help if they can't taste it.
Right. So you would say then, like, selling a vision or a PowerPoint and Excel deck is quite doable, as you just proved, but then actually building it, that's where the hard part begins, the hard work.
No, the hard work is then to really get into the economics and going to the pricing. Yeah. And in this market that we face, retailers and wholesalers, they are have a very powerful position because there are very few players, and they can actually push you they can push the prices down. And this is something which will be hard for us to get traction, but not for a very, very cheap price. Yeah.
Got it. So in that regard, you probably do need to address a very specific customer segment that is not solely focused on the price in the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is why we changed from selling food, we sell health. This is something different. So if you think about it, we grow plants, and the way you want to use those plants, whether it's for medicinal use or whether you eat it or whether you create a cream out of this and you put it on your skin, these plants are perhaps I'm back.
All good. Yeah, all good.
Good. Yeah. So the plants that we grow are premium quality, and we want to create a healthy, or we want to contribute to a healthy lifestyle of people with healthy plants for a healthy planet. This is what Yasai's mission is right now.
Nice. Yeah, Jack seems to agree. He says selling is hard work with a big smile. And also here, just a quick feedback from Egle Thomas. She also agrees, love the Mind Valley programs. So a great recommendation there. And we encourage everyone to check them out. They seem to be a really great resource. So Lilian, there's also more personal questions about Mark's lifestyle. Maybe it's time to bring that one up.
Exactly. So how has your frugal lifestyle helped you to become an entrepreneur?
Frugal lifestyle?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what should I say?
Maybe it's important. What was there first? Were you first an entrepreneur, or did you first have the frugal lifestyle already implemented in your personal life?
I think it comes both at the same time. So you end up being very minimalistic as a student at the beginning, and so you come into the employment market, business market, and that's why I think it's also very important that if you have an idea, start right after leaving the university, because then you're fresh in your mind. You can soak up know-how so quick. Still, even though I was 28, I'm actually an old master's degree guy, and in this sense, and you don't have anything to lose, right? So you could easily go back to get a job or get employed somewhere.
And on top of that, I think it's also crucial because you are used to live in a shared apartment, to live on a low budget. And if you have that, you can just extend your runway as a company, as a founder, by so much that it's significant, whether you start a company when you're a student and really don't have a high lifestyle expectation versus being, 40 years old, having 2 kids at home that you need to feed, and much more money that you need to bring home in order to just survive by the end of the month. I think that's a very, very good recommendation and crucial. So there's a saying, right? The best time to start a company is in your 20s or something. The second best time is now.
That's good. That's good. And what I can say also is, this is why I'm very, very grateful for my brother also to join Yasai, even though he's 9 years older than me, and he will be father soon in December. So for him, it's a high risk, and for me, to be honest. But yeah, this is why I very, very much appreciate his support.
So I know this might be too personal to ask, but I'm just curious. So how do you deal that with the salary? I mean, you have a frugal lifestyle. You don't have any kids yet, but your brother will soon become a parent. Do you pay yourself the same salary, or do you differentiate between the living costs, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so he has some savings, of course, and for now we almost have the same salary, which is cool. And at the end, yeah, it's just an investment. So he invests time, but at the other hand, he enjoys a very different lifestyle. Let's say he can actually work from home. He can actually organize his work himself, and also at the same time be a better father, or be more present as a father, let's say. Yeah. And this is something I think this is the greatest gift that comes out of entrepreneurship. You become your own boss. Yeah. And you can manage your time to manage your life as you wish.
Fully agree. If you've been there once and you enjoy it, you never want to go back.
Yeah.
So, last call for any questions from the audience. If there's anything that you would like to ask Mark, now's the time to write that in the comments. Mark, maybe there's anything else that you want to share, any thoughts on your mind, any challenges, anything that you want to give as a key takeaway to the listeners and viewers of tonight's episode?
Let's say today we were already thinking about how to grow the next Series A, or what is the next mission. And I think it's very, very crucial for everyone who wants to actually grow a company. You can't plan anything too far ahead, but always do a roadmap. So you have some clues in your head, and this is very important that you think very, very long term at the beginning, but then you need to be very agile and adapt all the time.
Yeah.
That's just one thing I thought today. I don't know, perhaps it's helpful for anyone. I don't know.
There are also like two things or two conversations that come to mind. Naval Ravikant, I admire him a lot. He's like the angel philosopher. And one thing that he keeps repeating is play long-term games with long-term people. So I really can't undermine the importance of what you just said, play long-term games. This is so crucial. And then in the very room that I'm sitting right now, we did an interview with the Swiss venture capitalist Philipp Stauffer, who lives in the US. And he says, even if your company fails, your mission doesn't have to fail. So you only fail in the end as a person if you stop going after your mission, what you really wanted to change. So even if your company fails or you have to adapt the course and stay agile, as you just mentioned, as long as you are heading towards your ultimate vision, your ultimate goal, you're on the right track. There might be detours, there might be bumpers in the road or obstacles along the way, but as long as you keep going and move forward step by step, you're heading in the right direction. Only when you stop chasing it, that's when you actually fail. So I think that's also a very good combination with what you just said.
Oh, well, thank you.
There's one last question here from Matthias. He wants to know what's the title of the second book that you mentioned before.
The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. Vishen is a Uishen Lakhiani, Lakhani.
Perfect. Hopefully you'll be able to find it that way, Matthias. Otherwise, reach out to us so we can send you a link. No worries about that one. Great. So these were all the questions that we had. Anything to add from your side, Lilian or Mark?
Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the year. It was great having you, and I love the discussions with you. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for being here, Mark, and Sylvanas, of course. It was nice to hear all your answers.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening or watching tonight. And we hope to see you for the next sessions together with the ETH Entrepreneur Club. Fascinating Swiss entrepreneurs is Mark and Swisspreneur. Enjoy your evening and see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.